Minister, the current budget outlines funding for disability programs and services, and those services include Disability Services Commission, Victorian Disability Workers Commission and the Victorian Disability Registration Board. The sector has made it clear that it wants a standalone disability regulator, not part of a one-stop shop. In a recent question in parliamentary question time, you implied these services would be combined into the new social services regulator. So will there be a standalone regulator as the sector has been requesting?
So there's a few issues that have been merged into one there, Ms Benham, but to go to firstly the entities reform in relation to the social services regulator, it absolutely remains my view that when it comes to the regulation of social services and when it comes to ensuring that people who access social services have a simplified way of ensuring that those services are regulated in a way that reflects their various needs, then it's really important that there is a reform, if you like, that simplifies and strengthens the regulations of social services in Victoria. So the government is absolutely committed to ensuring that the system is straightforward, that where problems with disability service providers and disability workers can all be dealt with under one roof. There have been extensive consultations and there will continue to be further consultation in relation to that, including with some of those who have expressed concern. And we absolutely acknowledge that this has been a really uncertain time for people with disability. They've had the NDIS reform review and so associated reforms. They've had the Disability Royal Commission, and at the same time we're now talking about how can we also better improve regulation of social services, including disability services here in Victoria. So absolutely I can appreciate that it has been an uncertain time for people with disability, and they rightly have questions about how we can best do that, but it absolutely remains my intention that it be simple, that it be straightforward, that people who have disability but may also have intersections with other issues, be it housing or other social services, that there is a simple one-stop shop that enables them to be able to get the support somewhere they can make a complaint if they need to make a complaint.
So, in the interest of time, your own slogan, nothing about us without us, the sector's made it clear that they don't want that one-stop shop and they want a standalone service. So which is it? Are you giving the sector what it wants and listening to them, or forcing an amalgamation under the new umbrella of the regulator?
Well, what I'm saying, Ms Benham, is I reject the premise of your proposition. Would you like me to answer your question, Ms Benham?
It's a yes or no. Is there going
to
be
I disagree with you. I don't think it is a yes or a no. As I've said, we're going to continue to have a conversation with the disability community, but at the same time, there is absolutely a need to recognise that the system as it currently stands doesn't work. And if I take, for example, according to the 23-24 DSC annual report, the Commission received a total of 69 new complaints last year. 7 of those complaints were assessed as in scope and 62 of those complaints were assessed as out of scope, which is a very clear indication that people with disability don't necessarily get the services that they are looking for when they go to the Disability Services Commission. Now, that doesn't say that there's not a role for the Disability Services Commission, and what we are talking about here is merging roles, not abolishing roles, and I would hate to see that there's any scare campaign about that, because what we have suggested is that there's absolutely an important role in the Disability Services Commission and the Victorian Disability Worker Commission, but that those roles should be part of a simplified system that ensures that the interconnectedness of people's requirements of the social services system are recognised and people have a place that they can go for a complaint that might be multifaceted. We will continue to consult about what that looks like,
in the
and we will
interest of
continue to
time,
work
what other disability groups have you consulted with outside VCOS and the department?
As I said in my answer to this question in the House, we have spoken with a number of community organisations.
Can you name them?
We have spoken with the Commissioner himself. We have spoken with others, and we will continue. We have a plan of consultation. We will continue to consult with those people going forward.
Can we name
and we
some of the
will
organisations,
continue
please?
to, if you give me a moment, I can find exactly the page that can list all of them for you. The Secretary might have it at hand. But we have consulted, and we will continue to consult, because what we are interested in is a reform that works for people with disability and recognises the interconnectedness of their issues. So far, conversations to establish these sessions, which remain ongoing, and we have confirmed further participation in the National Disability Services, further participation with VCOS, further participation with Anglicare, further participation with the Victorian Disability Council, the Office of the Public Advocate, the Centre for Excellence in Child and Family Welfare, the Disability Advocacy Resource Unit. And it's important, if we think of the conversation that we just had earlier in relation to children, many of these services also now provide services both in the children and families sector as well as in the disability sector. And the merger of Berry Street and Uralla is a really good example of that, where they now come under one roof and where a one-stop simplified system of regulation and of it, somewhere that people with disability know they can go to get service and their complaints heard if necessary, is really absolutely critical.
Thank you, Minister. Moving on to Budget Paper 3, page 124, which outlines, excuse me, a $105.8 million cut for disability programs and services on what was spent last year. The footnote explanation that the reduced 25-26 target primarily reflects the successful completion of government initiatives such as the transfer of disability services to non-government providers as part of Victoria's transition to the NDIS. Given this is the primary reason, surely that doesn't account for the full $105.8 million in cuts? What are the other areas?
I think the footnote's quite explanatory, but as this issue was obviously canvassed at last year's PAYAC, and as I advised PAYAC last year, the reduced target reflects the completion of the transfer of the disability services to non-government providers. Won't reread the footnote because you've already read it, but it's really, this reflects both the success, notwithstanding the review and the reform of the NDIS, but it is, as I said at our Disability Ministers meeting on Friday, the NDIS is the social services reform of our generation in a way that Medicare was the reform of many of those before us. But the successful completion of the NDIS involved that transition payment for those organisations that were previously SIL providers, or SIL providers, but recognised that they needed that additional payment in the transition to the NDIS. That has now been, or will be, successfully completed, and that's what those numbers reflect.
So how much of the cut is made up of the transfer of services to non-government providers?
Apologies, Ms Benham.